Are you ready to get scared? I shouldn't even be alive because I was in such a horrible accident. This is a story that I've encountered, and up to this day, I cannot forget this scary event. Well, at the time this happened, it was in the fall. I had a long day at school. Outside the school gate, it was still crowded with cars and people. Large trucks just rolled by as normal. And one truck was carrying wild animals to the zoo and accidentally caused a terrible accident. The truck's rear tire suddenly exploded, creating a loud noise that shook everything that surrounded it. The truck lost control and crashed straight into the school gate and flipped. If things just ended there, I guess there wouldn't be much worth mentioning. Since the truck door at the end of the truck was heavily hit, it accidentally swung open, and 2 ferocious lions from South Africa disappeared into the bushes without a trace. When the transport officer found out about their disappearance, it was already too late. They fled into the gates of my school. At that time, I was in my biology class. As soon as I was called by the teacher to answer the question, the fire alarm started ringing loudly. It startled everyone. A fire broke out on the first floor. Because of the many chemical laboratories nearby, it easily caught fire and burned ferociously. Fire and smoke covered the entire first floor, as well as the emergency staircase. All of the students in our class were studying on the second floor, so we couldn't escape in time. Professor Charlie tried to lead us to another way out, but we failed. Because the space of my school was extremely enclosed, and it was surrounded with so many glass windows, the smoke coming from the first floor rising into our classrooms on the second floor. The fire was picking up speed and terribly hard for us to breathe. We were all scared, screaming and not knowing what to do. The professor quickly divided our class into 3 small groups and assigned me to manage a group of 8 people. It was my responsibility to find the best and safest escape routes. As we tried to run to the foot of the stairs, we immediately ran into a large lion. It was a male lion, and its teeth were sharp and big. When we saw it, we all began panicking and screaming loudly, looking for a way to escape. So we used books, bags to throw at the lion, some decoy, but the lion kept advancing. I know the lion seemed to be injured, so it couldn't move as fast. We tried our best to get out of there. Unfortunately, it was only our classroom that was left open, and because on that day, it was only my class that had a lecture with Professor Charlie, so we had no other option but to get back inside our own classroom. As you might guess at that moment, and if you could only see what we were facing, this was a difficult situation. We had to find a way to fight off that lion while trying to escape these flames from the fire on the first floor. The 8 of us desperately tried to get back into our classroom. We were all so afraid, none of us dared to look behind us until we heard a girl scream. It was Lena. A gory-filled scene appeared right in front of my eyes. The lion fiercely pounced on her. It roared savagely, scratched and knocked her to the ground, making Lena lose consciousness. We were all horrified to realize that we couldn't save her anymore. So we ran straight into the classroom. I panicked looked around for items to fight off that lion. This was a killer lion. And seeing the ventilation duct on the ceiling, I immediately told my friends to get in there to hide. Others got into large drawers at the end of the classroom. We quickly tried to find a place that we could hide from the beast. At that moment, I was the only one not looking for another place to hide, because there was no time for me to do it. My duty now was to protect, so I couldn't run away. The lion would definitely not leave them alone, and I had to do something. And then I could see the lion's figure appear in the front of the room. He sniffed around frantically, and he moved really fast. The lion then slowly approached me with a loud growl and a terrifying echo. I went into a corner of the room. I raised the fire extinguisher to fight that lion. It didn't hesitate to rush toward me. It hit that lion right smack in the middle of his face, and then it fell to its side. But afterwards, it didn't do much harm. The lion just got back up, regained his balance, and continued roaring angrily at me. This time, its claws and teeth were revealed as it wanted to attack and bite off my head. I continued to hold the fire extinguisher, bent over, and dodged its swing. And this time, the lion failed to attack me, but he ran into a table instead. Again, the lion didn't give up. He came right back at me, turned his head, and raised its claws to scratch me. Since the lion moved so fast, I couldn't dodge it. Again, he attacked me, clawing me and biting me. I was bleeding all over. I held on to that fire extinguisher tightly as I could, while my arm continued bleeding and blood running out of my body. All my friends were hiding safely. Perhaps they were amused at watching me fight the lion. I understand that they were all terrified. I was bleeding like crazy. I felt dizzy, exhausted, and unable to stand any longer. When the lion was about to rush toward me again, it felt like I was about to die. My life flashed before my eyes, and suddenly I understood the reason my friends were watching is because they were terrified. The lion just kept prowling around, and another person threw a chair at it. But it was not just one person. It was my 3 friends. I must say, they were brave warriors, willing to give up their hiding places for me, and even put their life in danger. The lion ignored me. It slowly turned its anger on the 3 of them, and at that moment, the 3 of them divided into separate positions, in turn throwing any object they could find at the lion. The lion seemed to be in pain. It took a few steps back and gasped for breath. Meanwhile, we were trying to think of ways to fight it off. We immediately took action without making any mistakes. When the lion came rushing at Emma and about to attack her, I immediately used the fire extinguisher to spray it off, which made the lion lose its eyesight for a while. It staggered around and roared. Its body was covered with white foam. It was impossible for the lion to see things clearly, and with no time left, the fire began spreading to the 2nd floor, and many more classrooms were on fire. The only fire extinguisher we had was damaged. So Rose quickly ran around looking for another. This was a moment between life and death. How could we put this fire, this blazing fire, out with no fire extinguisher? It was time to figure out how we could survive now, and we had to make good use of every gesture and every thought. Faced with such a critical situation, Dan came up with the idea of closing our room. All of us would stay inside. Pinky hurriedly opened all the classroom windows, and I hurried to use the phone to call the firefighters to rescue us through these windows. We were completely surrounded by flames, and they were quickly reaching our classroom. Smoke and ash rose up in the room. We were so exhausted, it was difficult to breathe. I was beginning to wonder if we were ever going to make it out of here. We felt certain we were going to die. I rushed to the window and looked around. Luckily, the members of a fire brigade and the teachers had arrived and prepared the mattresses, shouting at us to jump down quickly. Without hesitation, I told my friends to climb out of the window, and I helped them to jump down one by one until they all landed safely. I tried to observe the surrounding, but I couldn't see the lion anywhere. So I immediately thought of Lena. I had to save her. I ran out of the room and cautiously walked towards Lena. She was still unconscious as her head had hit the floor and her hand was still bleeding heavily from the lion's bite. I struggled to get Lena back to the room and headed toward the window. As I looked back, I saw the lion getting exhausted and out of breath, laying at the end of the hallway. After the rescuers had helped Lena to land safely, I quickly jumped out. The whole school was blocked from all areas. According to the reports, there was still another female lion in the school. After the investigation, it was discovered that the fire was caused by a lion biting off the electrical wires, causing the sparks to spread to other classrooms, especially in the laboratory. That was the female lion, and it died from the shock when it bit the transmission line. After that unfortunate incident, we understood that lions were not the ones to blame. It was the people who had invaded their natural habitat and forced them to enter into a zoo. The most feared ones of all are not the predatory beasts, but look around. We are the biggest enemy.